Welcome back to Spotlight by the Intelligence. Today I have with me Lazer Kitten from Occult Cat Records. How you doing today?
Hi, friends. I'm doing good.
So I have had the unique opportunity to work with Occult Cats and Cat personally, just here and there in terms of like music experience and like getting involved with labels and stuff. And so I'm really delighted that you decided to show up on the show because I'm really interested in picking your brain a little bit further about what it is that you do. So I wanted to give this opportunity to you to kind of introduce yourself and talk about who you are and what it is that you get at after.
So, I am Kat. I go by Lazer Kitten. That is my main music project. I also have a music project called Garden Cat, which is more my lo-fi experimental stuff. Um, and then I have my own record label called Occult Cat Records, and I do a lot of music production. I do a lot of like teaching. I also do mixing and mastering. That was what I specialized in when I was in school. Obviously, I run a label, so I handle a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm just somebody who's deep dived into music a lot more than anything else.
Definitely. And I can respect a person who wears many hats because I'm one of them myself, right? So honestly, I have questions about everything that you mentioned, but what do you feel like is most relevant to start with?
um, well, honestly, just pick something because, like, I'm honestly an open book. I'm happy to share any knowledge I have.
Sure, let's time warp a little bit. So I want you to take things way back to when you first like expressed an interest in music. How did Laser Kitten and Garden Cat come to be?
So, well, honestly, my first really experience in music was I played violin from like fifth grade until my freshman year of high school, and that's kind of when I stopped playing violin because I didn't really get along with my orchestra teacher as much then. But I had been in advanced orchestras. I had been like first chair, first violin. I had done like kind of competition violin in a way. It's where the whole orchestra would go and like kind of compete and stuff. And so I was really in love with music. And then when I got into high school, I just didn't like the teachers that were at my school, and I was just like, this isn't really right for me. And then when I was in my senior year of high school, I was kind of lucky because I had a photography teacher who knew I had been like in bands and like actual rock bands, even for that matter. Because like when I kind of got out of orchestra, I just went into other music essentially, and I kind of stopped wanting to be in a band because it was just too much chaos. And my teacher presented me with this opportunity of like, I'm starting an after school program, and it's going to be just playing with GarageBand. Like you can make music by yourself. You can like just play around on the computers. And I didn't have a computer at home, so this was like a great opportunity for me to be like, "Oh, I can make music solo without it being like instruments kind of thing. I want to see what that's about." And just deep dived into GarageBand, which is a really funny thing to think about if you like actually look at it. At the time I was playing around with it because it was not professional in terms of like anything close to where you could feel like you could make something now, essentially. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to learn on something as clunky as I did. I mean, these were also the high school's computers at a public school, so they were like not in great condition anyways. But and then after that, it was like I didn't really necessarily want to like go into school for producing per se, but ended up in school for music production and engineering, kind of because I wanted to explore the vein of acoustic design. I wanted to be designing recording studios. That was something I actually really liked because I had been taking a lot of architecture classes, and it was something I really enjoyed. And then I'd also been producing. And when I got into school, it was like I was more focused on mixing and mastering, but I also wanted to go do the master's degree and stuff for architecture. Um, but when I was in college, it was really funny because like a lot of my professors were very much like, you're talented, you're good at this, you should actually be making music, like your own projects and stuff like that. And it kind of turned into this whole, the best way I could like promote my art and my own music when I was going down that route was to become a DJ, because that's how producers show off their music. And then I'd met Zeke, No Nice Things, and we had started a duo project called Grim and Reaper at the time. And we got like a few really good shows with that, and like actually had done some really good releases, like got on a few labels with the project. And when I was getting close to like graduating from my school, my capstone class was kind of a big push on like kind of make like a project for your, or it was like I had to make my own capstone. I had to show off my own skill, my own art, not necessarily in the duo project, but like what I had learned. And it turned into Lazer Kitten essentially, and it was just this whole thing of like Grim and Reaper had been very heavy focused on glitch hop and like bass music and vintage remix, which was like 1920s style big band remixed into electro. And so what I had done with like Lazer Kitten was it was all my pretty house music. It was like the stuff that wasn't fitting for this dark project that I had. And I wanted something fun and colorful and bubbly, kind of like me, because I'm a little bit dark and spooky, but like I absolutely love colorful things. Like I wanted something cute and fun that I could just feel myself in. And thus Lazer Kitten was born. And then from there, Garden Cat came from basically the pandemic because I felt a little bit boxed in with some of the experimental music I was making for Lazer Kitten. And I kind of went through like this weird head thing of like, well, I can't release any of this music I've been making on Lazer Kitten because it's not right. It's like, it's all lo-fi. It's all at like 90 BPM. It's not house music. It just wouldn't make sense. And like I have one song where it features Garden Cat on Lazer Kitten, but I kind of launched it in 2020, and it was for the purpose of making music for my childhood cat, which is a really funny thing, but it was just like the music I would have imagined myself listening to as a kid with my cat in my parents' garden, which is why it's Garden Cat. It's me and my cat.
I like it. It gives very much like a feeling of home. If I can kind of like pick up where you left off and go backwards a little bit, I was gonna say one thing that I find is like a really common theme among like a lot of the lo-fi heads that we've get on the show is like trying to recreate this feeling of peace or like
Yeah.
of childhood nostalgia or like alone in the woods kind of thing. And it's like it's a kind of speaks to this idea that like we have these like periods of strong energy, right, where you make this intense music, be it bass or be it pretty colorful house, and then like we have a situation that forces us to be stuck inside our homes for like days, months, weeks on end, and like you start to feel like something's missing, right? And I think it's just that like that peace, that slow down, and that opportunity to just like sit, reflect, enjoy yourself, but not have to be like enthusiastic and high energy about it. Anyways, that's just me being poetic about lo-fi, right?
I
Like
mean, that's how I feel about it, because literally it was me just being like a little bit spiraled out just because of how like I make this joke all the time. I am an antisocial social butterfly. Like I like my peace. I like to be alone because I like to work on my own projects, but I need those outside connections. I need to be able to talk to people, and like especially with being an artist and a DJ and someone who's worked in nightlife for the last 15 years, it was like I was honestly losing it. And so like Garden Cat really did just come out of like, I need to make something different. I need to make something that's not party music. I can't write party music at this time because there's no parties. So I'm just going to write something that makes me happy and feel good. So that's really where it came from.
No, I love it. It sounds like it comes from a super genuine place. And it also speaks to me like this thing that I am coming to realize, I think, long after doing things wrong, which is you have this compartmentalization of different music projects, right? Like you talked about the heavy bass music, glitch hop with the Grim and Reaper project. You talked about the pretty house and the peaceful experimental lo-fi with Garden Cat. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how necessary do you feel like it is to come up with a different alias and branding for each one of these projects? Because you sound like you understand very thoroughly in your head that each one of these subtypes of music has to be presented or portrayed in a certain way differently from the other ones.
So I'm kind of a strong believer that like you don't necessarily need to have multiple projects. And I say this just because of some of my friends that I've been around and some of the like big artists that I know. Um, there's this weird thing where you feel like you do need to compartmentalize with it. And I feel like it's just more of a chapters kind of thing. So one thing I've kind of like taken to heart with Lazer Kitten specifically, because that is my main project and the one I put all of my focus, time, and energy into in terms of my music. You're allowed to be an artist and express yourself however you feel like it, because it's your art, it's your name, it's your presence. I do think there is a level of like you need to have some sort of compartmentalization, because you do need to know kind of what your branding is and what you want. I do kind of label myself as bad bitch EDM, just because I am very female focused, very, very like, I want it to be for the girls. I want it to feel fun and just energetic and stuff. And I don't like being boxed into like specific genres, because I don't feel like that's just like a great way to allow an artist to express themselves, because artists are people. They go through changes. Like, the whole point of being an artist is expressing your life so other people can understand it. And so I don't necessarily believe it's completely necessary, but if you do want to have multiple projects, the big thing to be aware of is whichever one you're focusing on is going to take all of your attention, and your other ones are going to go to the sideline. So I have a hard time being like, hey, unless this is like a big genre jump, start a new project, if that makes sense. So like, I feel like with Garden Cat versus Lazer Kitten, it makes sense because Garden Cat is more for like home listening. I'm never going to play it at a club. I don't expect to get shows with it. It's not something that I want to perform as. It's just something I wanted to exist out there. And it's honestly for me. It's not really for anybody else. It's 100% for myself. If other people want to listen to it, great. I'm happy that they enjoy it and they like it connects and resonates with them. But it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, start multiple projects, when I've seen it just be like, yeah, just put your art out there. Put it out as whoever you want to put it out as. Like, if they like it, they like it.
Right. I guess the reason that speaks to me is because I also like I am a big fan of variety, right? Like I get very bored quickly with certain genres, and I like to try a lot of different things. And I feel like I've noticed that work against me, you know, like coming into the music scene, and people be like, "What
Yeah.
exactly is your brand?" And I'm like, "Well, my brand is I like to make what I like to make," right? And people hate to hear that, but it's like I think coming back to what you said, it's like I don't expect any artist to stagnate or be the same forever. People
Yeah.
change, they develop, they grow, they create new art styles, and so mostly, I like how you presented it two different ways, right? It's like if the music is different enough, or you've gone through enough of a change and you're prepared to put whatever you have been working on by the side, then it's worth starting a new project. However, you know, like even within the context of a specific alias, it allows for some change too, is
Yeah.
the message I'm getting. But I do like suggestions on how people can do that better, right? Because I feel like nowadays we have to contend with like very niche labels, niche events, and the algorithm, which, you know, might do really well with a particular genre of music and might quote unquote punish you for going against what you've established previously by trying to
Oh,
do
yeah.
something new.
Yeah.
So sorry, was there more you wanted to add to that?
Well, I mean, I personally do feel that, where I've had issues where it's just been like, so during 2020 again, I had written an entire album for Lazer Kitten, regardless of my other project with Garden Cat, but it was very bass music. It was very bass heavy. And it was really funny because I did play a show specifically. I got booked to play. I was the opener for Tin Liquor on their Utah stop at the Depot. I was like their direct support kind of thing. I was the only other artist playing with them, so it was a wild experience. It was like honestly a dream show for me. But after that show had happened, I had played another show, and someone came up to me and they're like, "I don't understand how you got Tin Liquor. I listened to your music and it's all bass music. You're not a house or techno artist. Like, your set was great, but like you don't produce that." And I'm like, "Oh, you only listen to a very specific album that I wrote, which was at a very dark time in my life, because honestly, all of the pandemic was really dark for me, but like um I'd written just this really experimental kind of like, I didn't want to stay structured in house music for it either. So it was kind of this weird thing of like, well, you also didn't listen to the entire thing, because it goes from like experimental stuff like bass music and then drops into house music and techno at the end of the album. And it was like a whole, I think it was like 12 or 13 tracks on that album kind of thing. And so like it can definitely backfire, but it's also just one of those things. I feel like there's a good way of branding it where you can be like, okay, this is my voice. Like, you have to understand this is what I went through and this is why I wrote this song. Like, and I feel like just having genuine connections with your fans to like let them understand the story of like why you're writing it and letting them in helps more so than like trying to convince a label why they should be paying attention to someone who's multi-genre. Because like if you can convince people to consume your music, like if you can tell them that they can connect to this in a certain way, it's going to be way more beneficial than like someone else being like, well, this doesn't match our branding kind of thing. It's like, well, this is my story. So
Right. No, I absolutely like that take on it because that's what it feels like to me. Is like I was in a mood when I wrote this, right? I was going through a thing, and the music is an expression of that thing I went through, right? And so
Mhm.
to corporatize it in my mind is almost to like take away the human element from the music. It's like, am I making music for the love of the art, or am I making music to fulfill a job and check a box? I don't want to be a hater on behalf of labels and stuff like that because I talk to a lot of people who are very they've had a lot of success with label releases,
Yeah.
especially on the lo-fi end. It's like I could not speak to enough the amount of help I think that provides an artist early on for the exposure that they need to to like get their music out there, which kind of brings me into my next question if you are ready to move on. So I was going to say that you mentioned something that also stuck out to me in terms of getting into DJing as a medium of having the opportunity to present your art.
Yeah.
Like how did you come to realize that DJing was going to be necessary to get your art out there? And then when you did, how did you go about arranging for opportunities to present that art?
So for me getting into DJing, it was a little bit interesting because I had been producing music for like 3 or 4 years prior to actually considering really being a DJ. Um, but I had also like I would it was kind of funny because like when I was in high school, I would go to house parties and I would be the girl with the iPod that we would plug into whoever's parents' sound system, and we'd be listening to my music kind of thing, like all night long. Not even stuff that I had made, just like the stuff I had collected. And I deep dived iTunes. I was a weird kid. That was my allowance. Like music was big thing for me. And so it was kind of funny when I started making electronic music. I didn't necessarily. I was going to raves. I was going to shows. I was going to underground events, kind of thing. I had always loved DJs. I had always loved electronic music. Like I just never really had connected that like if I wanted to be a music producer making solo music that I would need to be a DJ. And that didn't really connect with me until I got into like college when I was actually doing a little more thoughtfully essentially. And I had met No Nice Things, Zeke, and he had CDJs, CJ 900s, and like I started playing on them and like it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it and it was kind of like that like click for me of just like, oh, if you do want to like perform or if you do want to showcase your music, especially electronic music, why aren't you considering DJing really a little bit more seriously kind of thing? Like this is really the way producers showcase their music. And like my favorite producers at the time were Feed Me and Dead Mouse and Spork, John Gooch, honestly, just all of his projects. Um, and I knew that like Dead Mouse was very big on like he was not a DJ, but I also knew that John Gooch was. Like I'd literally seen his show a few times and like he's one of my favorite DJs. Um and so it really was that big connector of like, well, if you want to be like what they're doing, you're going to have to perform. And how do you perform? You DJ. So I just took those steps of like having opportunities of like, here's this. And then we had started up the duo project, which made it a lot easier for me to have like a little bit of confidence of like, okay, it's not just me, it's somebody else who's interested in this too. Let's start booking shows. And then like I got really good at talking to promoters and making connections, and we would be out at shows like because we were in music too. I was like in college for music. It was just like we were out every single weekend. If we weren't playing the show, we were working the show or we were throwing the show. And we threw a lot of shows and went to a lot of parties and made a lot of friends. And like we're doing house parties and we were going out. And like I remember there was one year when I was in college. So my mom was a big concert goer in her 20s and such, and she had this whole thing of like I have been to X amount of shows, and I remember it was like my second year of college. I went to that many, all of her combined concerts in her life. I had went to that many in a single year, and she was so mad but so proud all at the same time. I saw the look of just like absolute anger, but also just like I'm proud of you because this is what I knew you should be doing, kind of thing. And so it was just this fun thing of just like I built the momentum from just doing the thing, really. It was like going out, talk to people, play shows, practice.
So if I can kind of deconstruct what you're saying right there, it sounds like you are a producer at heart. Obviously, you
Mhm.
said as much, right? And I can relate to that very strongly, right? It's like I have been behind a DAW, like, OG cracked Ableton since like 2014, 2015. Never really started to click or occur to me that the music would have any place or any vehicle for establishing it until like within the last 3 years. I'm just like, oh shoot, like, the people who are playing music and getting music heard are the ones who are behind the decks, like saying, hey, this song that I made is next up in the queue. I'm about to play it for you guys. So I think it's funny to talk to other people with that same background, because it really speaks to me with this thing DJing, which is like a fun and enjoyable social experience, starting out as a necessary evil for
Yeah.
like putting yourself on the map. Um, and what I was going to say is that like your breakdown kind of inspired like a lot more questions in terms of your education path. If I can kind of jump to some of those. So you said you went to school for music and you were either playing the shows or working the shows.
Yep.
While you were in school for music, like I guess it sounded like you were coached into pursuing that over architecture by your mentors who saw something in you and said, "Hey, we think maybe this is the path for you." Right? What was the
Uh,
experience like of? Sorry, go ahead.
oh, well, I was gonna say yes and no. So, like, the architecture thing wasn't really I was forced out of that one by the price of college. I would absolutely still pursue that if I had the money for it, but student loan debt kind of is what, like, stopped me from that one. But, the reason I kind of pursued actually the other side of it and not really, because I was not coached out of it. Like, one of my professors even was just like, "No, after you get here, this is where you should go. This is what you should look into, all of these other schools and stuff," because he was actually, at the time, I don't know if this has changed, but at the time, he was the most certified avid user on the West Coast from, like, between Chicago and California. And he was one of my favorite professors, and then my other one, like, I had 3 professors that were, like, my absolute favorite at my school that taught me more than I could, like, even begin to explain. And they were all very much like, music is one of those things you were gonna do anything and everything. And one of them was very, like, just big on, like, if you're doing this, make sure you're having fun with this, because, like, so many people get so sucked up into, like, the business side, the labels, the logistics, and they would always just remind me, "If you're doing this, do it because you love it, do it because you're having fun doing it, like, don't overthink it, just are you having a good time? Yes. Are you having a good time? No, leave," kinda thing. Like, and so for that, it was this whole thing of, like, when I was in college, I needed to earn money, and one of the things that worked was, like, throwing shows and working with event companies, so I had worked with, Zay Events, which was actually, Zeke's company prior to, working with Occult Cats and his own thing and being an AV tech and stuff, that's a whole other thing. It was one of those things where we were throwing events and raves and such and threw quite a few big shows, and I was also working for Wilder Productions, which was an AV company, um, that threw big, like, will help do sound for, like, big shows and, like, big concerts and stuff, and, like, I even ran sound for, like, the Utah Blues Festival because of it, and, like, uh, I worked in multiple clubs helping run sound and just doing different things because of that, and that was just it was really fun for me for a long time. The reason I stopped doing AV work and, like, stagehand work had a lot to do with more just health stuff, like, I am not built to be a stagehand. I got injured, and it was just like, "Okay, I need to, like, reframe, like, refocus, and, like, step back and just, like, do the things that are fun again that aren't hurting me necessarily."
Sure. Thank you for setting me straight, because I think that's important, right? Is like you had options and we're receiving encouragement on all of those options, but we're forced, I guess, or I guess call it the there was external pressure given the situation to
Yeah.
pursue a particular path due to opportunity availability, due to financial availability, that sort of thing, right? And it's like I think you really put the emphasis on the most important part, which is like, are you having fun? Do you enjoy it? Right?
Mhm.
It's like I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, right? Like I took the MCAT. I was miserable the entire time, and it's like I wanted to be a doctor to one up my parents who were physical therapists, and all I liked, all I enjoyed was music, but I understood that work was like this separate thing that like was just a means to an end, and that the more money you made, the more it allowed you to participate in the things you actually enjoyed. And like at some point you realize you're like, I'm actually devoting 99% of my time towards this thing I hate. And like I'm doing it for money or for status or for like career achievements, right? And I don't get to enjoy any of the fruits of my labor because I haven't lined up any of the possibilities or opportunities to do the thing that I actually like. So yeah, forgive my little like lost time vent right there.
No, that's fine. Like I relate to that more than you realize, because like it's funny. My dad was an artist who didn't get to be an artist, and he's like a really big push as to why I did actually pursue it, because it was like I saw how sad he was not getting to be an artist, and so it's just like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an artist. I'm going to chase this. It's fun. I don't want to be sad that I had to do something different, and like that's a really big reason why I actually did just be like, yeah, I'm gonna do music. Like all my friends are going to school for doctors and nurses and like all of these like big fancy like corporate jobs, and I'm just like, yep, that's not for me. I'm a musician. I like making beep boop noises and being colorful and weird and having crazy hair and just being a little bit of an oddball. So it's just always been fun.
No, it sounds like it worked out. And what I really like is how many, career relevant opportunities presented themselves to you while you were in school for the right thing. So, like, I guess what I wanted to ask about was working shows while in college. Did the college come to you and say, hey, this is your assignment, go run sound, go run AV for this club? Or was it sort of like a peripheral thing that you're doing on the side while being educated on how to do it?
A little bit of both. So I had one of my classes that I had to take was a human connections, or it was human studies of some sort. It was kind of or human relations. That was the class. And one of the things that we had to do, and this was a class that was like, so I went to an art school. We had non-art students that were in this class, like from the other schools that were not the art school classes. So most of the students that were in that class with me were a bunch of art students, but a lot weren't. And something the school required was that you did a volunteer project where you went out into the community and did something good. And the first group I had gotten grouped up with was, they wanted to do, I can't even remember. I think it was like reading books in the library or something like that. And I was just like, okay, cool. I'm the dyslexic girl. This is, I'll go with it. I don't want to be in charge of this kind of thing. And one of the other groups I had gotten partnered up was a bunch of the other music students and a couple of the art students that were like drawing visual art kind of things, or like the audio or the video movie students. And they had decided they wanted to do like a music concert. And the professor that I had in that class had already known that I was already working in AV and like was actively throwing shows and doing music. Like I was one of the few in my music program that was actually like actively pursuing it and like actually gigging and actually working and stuff. Not to say that there weren't others doing that. There were. It was just I was one of the ones that like was going a lot more above and beyond. And so after class, she had pulled me aside. She's like, I'm going to make you switch groups. I know you're not happy with doing this library project. I can tell it's not you. And this group needs help. They do not have anyone who can basically lead them in throwing a show. Like none of them have, they're all musicians. Yes. None of them actually understand the logistics of what goes behind this. And so I had thrown my first show, like that was actually my first show with that group. And we called it I Feed on Sound. And we basically, it was just basically a concert. We had a couple DJs, we had a band. We performed in the back of a coffee shop because they had like a venue space kind of thing. And it was donate food. And we brought all the food to the food shelter, got a slip kind of thing. And I think we donated like 55 pounds worth of food.
Respect.
Which, considering like how small of a concert it was actually pretty impressive. Oh, 150 pounds of food, actually, my bad. But it was like a really fun thing getting to be part of like the little communal group of just like the music students throwing a benefit concert essentially with our school's permission, and them helping us promote it and pitch it and market it and all this stuff, and pulled in other kids from other programs and stuff. So much so that like my next year, I wasn't even in that class. And the next wave of students were, And they actually asked me to come in and pull in the new students to run it again for a second year in a row, doing the same thing to like show the next grade like what to do and how to do it kind of thing. So it was a really kind of a cool thing, just being like, oh yeah, I started this fun little project and they actually liked it and it was cool and it was backed by my school. I was just like, okay.
I really got to hand it to your professors in this situation where they identified that a project you had been, maybe kind of shunted into wasn't the right fit for you. And they basically talent recruited you based upon your knowledge and familiarity with the logistics, as you put it, to throw this more successful event. And then later on realized it was so successful that it was worth bringing you on again as a consultant for the next one. I think the professors did a good job in utilizing your skills. You obviously had skills worth utilizing here. So I'm going to ask a more general question here to kind of pivot off that, right? Because I loved the detail and the entry into the show throwing. What I wanted to clarify is like, what exactly is the logistics of a show throwing event? What does it take to throw a show? And when you talk about gigging or working an event, what does that entail?
So that is a loaded question. Because there is a lot that goes into throwing a show. And so I will say for like I'll use that one as a good example since like it wasn't nearly as big as some of the other shows I've been a part of or thrown or anything like that. So the first thing you have to make sure you have is a location that is okay with it. So you got to talk to a venue. You got to make sure that they're going to be like comfortable with people coming in. You have to like kind of give them a clear expectation of what you expect. You have to have branding, you have to have a way to pitch it, you have to have legalities. You have to make sure noise ordinances are in place because I've had shows shut down because of not having proper permits kind of thing. You have to have security to some extent. Like you can't just be like you can throw a show without security. Highly do not recommend it. Most venues that are going to let you do something professional like that are not okay with it. You have to make sure you have security of some form. You have to have like someone who can manage basically the income and flow of traffic by means of people coming in and out of the venue. That means like you have a door person, even if it's a free show, because like again, the show was technically free. It was just donate food kind of thing, food for the food shelter. We had to have somebody who was collecting that kind of thing. We had to have someone that was standing there all night, basically making sure everyone that was coming into this wasn't being a problem, could notify security if there was something that was kind of sus. And then you have to book artists. You have to make sure that they have all the things they need. You have to have sound for that, and you have to know what they need. So because we had both DJs and a band, the band we had booked was a local band who was kind of on the bigger scale. They didn't break, unfortunately, but they were just right barely about to. And I don't know fully what happened as to why they didn't, but they were actually a pretty big band at the time. I Capture Castle, if anybody has ever heard of them. I personally love them. They were an emo rock band. I thought they were really cool. I was really sad they never made it bigger. But we had to have like space for their drum kit. They had to have space for their bassist and their amps and the guitarist and their amps and the vocalist. Had to have all the cables and the connections, make sure everything ran into a soundboard that ran into the speaker system. Had to have an engineer for that so that nothing blew. And then we also had to have like a changeover because we had DJs. So we had to have the DJ gear. We had to have the connections for that. We had to make sure that wasn't going to have any issues. And then we had stage production. We had lights. We had engineers. we had banners. We had like all these big production-y kind of things for this kind of small show. Like nothing over the top, nothing really that huge. It was very renegade in a lot of regards. But like you have to think about all those kind of sides of it. And then you have to just market it. You have to like have artwork. You have to have like a way of like getting it out to people. And at that time, Instagram was kind of more on the news side. So Facebook was really big. We had to like promote in groups. We had to promote to like friends and family. We had to spread the word. Our school, fortunately, like even posted it on their website and their social media pages to spread it out to people. We had posters. We had like printing. We even like went out to printing shops and talked to like local printers to like have them basically cut the cost of our flyer printing just because they wanted their name as a sponsorship. And getting out sponsorships is a big thing. Like we went out, like a lot of the students went and tried to get sponsorships of people who are willing to like be part of this and donate to it. So like there's a lot that actually goes into throwing shows and events that like a lot of people just don't realize that happens.
No, definitely. That was like a mind-boggling amount of moving parts to try and track. I can't imagine being the person in charge of organizing that because I think people expect you to be able to hop in on any one of those jobs, even if it's not necessarily within your niche, just because you're the person in charge. This thing is broken. Can you fix it? Sort of thing.
Yep. I feel like so one of the big reasons why I don't personally like throwing large shows like that anymore is because it is very much so you have to know something of everything. You have to delegate a lot of it. Like I am good at that. It just gets very overwhelming. So like having a good team is huge and I'm grateful for the people that I have in my corner that are willing to help me with these kind of things because I do have a good team. I've thrown shows since I threw shows like 2 or 3 years ago. I haven't thrown anything recently, but it's just kind of cuz like Utah's scene is shifting a bit right now and like I'm trying to find a good venue opportunity and that's a hard thing.
So I guess I'm going to take this opportunity to ask about partnerships, right? Because it sounds like it was you guys. I don't want to say dependent, but you guys benefited very clearly from having friends and family and other organizations who wanted to put their stamp of approval on it. They wanted to help out. They wanted to get involved, pitch what they had, cut you guys deals on getting you what you needed, that sort of thing. And so like like say you are in this position of being like an early event promoter slash event organizer and you are looking to arrange all of these moving parts. It's like what suggestions would you give to someone in that position for fostering the kind of connections where people want to help you and make this kind of equipment and opportunity available to you?
So, this is something I've actually helped out with a lot of people who've wanted to get into events. And a big piece of advice I have is actually kind of going a little bit of the route I did, because I didn't throw my first show right out the gates by myself. I had actually talked to AV companies. I had been doing stagehanding and stuff. I'd like obviously been doing like a whole bunch of other things. But find somebody who's throwing shows that you have a lot of respect for what they're doing. And I really say this more on the smaller side. So like the smaller shows, a little more like undergroundy things, the things that aren't like big productions, not festivals, because you have to have experience to get into festivals. But like find some of these smaller groups or like even a club night. Find a club night. Talk to the manager. Say I would like to know who's a lighting engineer, like, or talk to the lighting engineer, talk to the sound guy if you can. They might not necessarily want to talk to you necessarily while the show is running, but like if you can get their contact to be like, hey, can we talk outside of the show? I would love to learn more about how I could get into this, or maybe get some pointers from you. A lot of these people are very happy to be like, oh, cool, I'll give you some information. This is what I can tell you. Run. So like I've had a few friends that I've even, huh? We're all nerds. But like I've had a few friends that I've even had come up to me and be like, I want to start doing lights. How do I get into that? Like you've done that for a few clubs. How'd you do that? And I'm like, well, I learned the software and then pitched myself to the club, or I knew somebody who had already been working there, or they needed somebody kind of thing. And so we've just had a few friends who've been like, okay, here's a connection we have. Go talk to them. They might be able to help you. And they've actually gotten jobs and work out of it kind of thing pretty regularly.
So it's very much a situation of both making yourself available to new opportunities, new connections, and leveraging the ones you have currently. Leveraging has like a negative connotation with it because it implies that you are using somebody else. But I think that's really what it is, right? Is like you leverage in the sense of like a person who you respect in this group, and they might be willing to entertain some questions you have to get like an issue sorted out. And then you become a person who knows about that issue, and then someone proceeds to know about you knowing about that issue in the future is what I'm getting out of it.
Well, so one thing about the entertainment industry that I will say is it is very much so about your connections. As much as everybody hates hearing that, it is. But that's not necessarily a bad thing in the aspect of I know there's a lot of gatekeeping and stuff, supposedly, and I know that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but like it's one of those things of a lot of people are willing to share their skills, because I do know that there is this level of there isn't enough of us, and this industry chews people up and spits them out pretty quickly. It's the ones who are determined and stubborn that stick around that usually go the furthest, and they're usually the ones that are willing to help others out because they know how rough it can get.
Okay. It's like dealing with a harsh reality with a very optimistic outlook on it. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I was gonna say You have so much information to offer that
Yeah.
I feel like I can't move on to the next piece because I keep uncovering new things that I'm like, wow, that sounds cool. I wanted to kind of wheel a little bit from here into what is going on with the mixing and mastering. So, like, obviously, you went to school for that, and like,
Yes.
despite throwing events and you know, being in this position where you're working out in the nightlife, you also do work from home. You like
Yes.
commission contract work. What is that
Yes.
like? How do you promote that? And like when you do jobs for people, what's like a day in the life of a mixing engineer?
So, I got into mixing and mastering engineering because one of my 3 producers was or 3 professors was just like, "You've got the ear for this. Like, you actually have really good hearing. You hear details other people aren't paying attention to." And that was kind of this really big, like, eye-opening moment for me of just like, "Oh, normal people don't notice that?" Like, I was a little confused when he said that of just like, "Wait, I thought everyone was paying attention to, like, these little under sounds that, like, the little textury detail or, like, the fact that the tambourine is just slightly off beat or, something weird like that." And so it really just, like, turned to this whole thing of just like, "Oh, I can make a really good song sound even better," and I had a lot of fun with that. So, especially being in school for music production and engineering, most of them were there to, like, record their own bands, like, they wanted to get into recording studios, and I was over here just like, "Wait, I don't necessarily wanna get into a recording studio, yeah, that would be really cool, but I can take what you guys just recorded and make it sound even better. That sounds awesome." And so, I was really lucky that it kinda like when I started, I got to, like, work with some of my friends who are musicians, the connections that I made, band players, like, I had a guitarist who's, like, still one of my favorite guitarists to this day. I got to record his experimental, like, EP when he first started with that, and, like, he's one of those ones that, like, plays the full guitar, and I don't just mean the strings, but I mean, like, using the body of an acoustic guitar as an instrument just as much as, like, the actual strings. And so, like, I had to learn a whole weird way to record him, and then the mastering process was really fun because I taught my professor some stuff that he was a rocker from the '80s who had worked with huge metal bands, like, bigger than, like, I can even, like, say kinda thing, and was, like, learning stuff from me, and it was this fun thing, and, like, so it really was just a cool thing to be like, "Yeah, I'm taking this really weird thing and I'm making it sound really good." And because of that, it was just, like, building all these connections of, like, "Oh, I'm really good at this skill. I'm not even necessarily gonna just be over the top about it, like, I'm just gonna keep doing it." I had friends that, like, just sent me their music, just be like, "Hey, what do you think of my song?" I'm like, "You wanna let me mix and master this? Like, I'll just do it, just send it to me," kinda thing. And so, like, a big reason why, like, my record label, Occult Cats, that I'm running, is the way it is because it's kind of me just taking songs I hear from my friends that sound really good. Like, I hear the production, like, "Your production is great," like, "I love your mix," like, I love what you did with this, I love all the sounds and stuff." I can make it sound like it's ready to be out there on, like, an album or, like, on this big thing kinda thing. Just let me mix and master your track, and so that's where a lot of it kinda came from, and a lot of where my work has came from is just me hearing my friends' songs and being like, "Okay, you were so close. You've got the song done. You're done. Let me finish this for you. I know that I can help," kinda thing. And a lot of them just trust me because 'cause they've heard what my work is, and they're like, "Yeah, here's my track. Just do your thing." And so I've built my, like, clientele basically through that, and, like, I'm grateful for, like, when I don't have to do that with all the tracks on my label just because, like, it is a lot of work. But, like, I'm not upset to do it because like, I wanna make other people's art shine just as much as mine because I have fun mixing and mastering. It's a whole different beast in my opinion, and I really enjoy the process of it because I get to be just as creative as I am with production. But, so kind of the day in the life of it is, like, I'll get sent a song, and then I will, on average, probably spend between, like, 6 to, like, 10 hours sometimes, depending on, like, how much work needs to be done mixing, and then maybe another hour or 2 mastering. Um, but a lot of that is just basically taking, like, the individual pieces of a song and balancing them out just where, like, like, one of the things I feel like I'm really good at is hearing the intention by every sound in the song and how it's supposed to balance and how it's supposed to play and how an artist envisions it. Because like, sometimes what happens is when a DJ or not a DJ, a producer's been working on a song for, like, what, 14 weeks essentially? Like, they get so lost in, like, these small details that don't make a big difference, and they'll just get so stuck in it that they'll lose kind of how it's sounding altogether just because of overplay. Like you just hyper focus on this that you lose the balance. So it's very beneficial to have someone on the outside just be like, okay, I'm going to make this all sound like how I hear you wanting it to sound. And then I'll send it back to them after I'm done and be like, do you like how this sounds? And like, if you have anything that like, I might've just been like, this is my preference, I think this should be a little bit louder. And they're like, oh no, I wanted that to be a little more subtle. I'm like, okay, I can fix that. That's an easy problem. Like that's an easy thing to fix. I'm happy to do that kind of stuff. Just be like working with the artist to make sure that like I'm making their song shine. So that.
I love the connection between all of the different points that you stopped on in that breakdown right there, because it shows the system, right? Like I want to back up a little bit talking about having an ear for the small details, right? I think that's like a good screen to see if you're cut out for this sort of work, because sometimes I'll show my music or even just music in general to other people. And if they are the casual music listener type, which is not to shade them or anything, I've gotten this feedback. I hear three things, and like it's like usually like two drums and a vocal, or like a drum, a vocal, and a synth lead, something like that. I was like, you don't hear like the like 90 tracks that went into this like gestalt arrangement of putting everything together. And so I
My
feel like
least favorite
being
kind
able
of
to
is your song is too long, your song is too short. I'm like, that doesn't help anything.
I think the capability to like screen and even hyperfixate on the details is kind of like what sets a good engineer apart in my mind. Is like they can see past the layers to like what purpose some of the not necessarily random but like more avant-garde like buried stuff does for the track. And
Yeah.
I like especially how you worked it into how the label functions. Like for example, if I can offer a piece of I guess like personal experience, right? So I was listening to a podcast called Electronic Dance Money, which was focused on music business.
Yeah.
And I actually had the opportunity to interview the guy who hosted it, Christian,
Oh,
on
nice.
the show here. And he used that podcast where he talked to artists about how to run their music like a business as a vehicle for attracting clientele to his mixing and mastering
Yeah.
company, Envious Audio. And like I was hooked. They mixed and mastered my first album. And so I think that like having this idea of that comes from a good genuine place, right? I want my music, I want my friends' music to sound as good as it possibly can. Like I want to portray them in the best light. Really does a lot for your credibility as both like a label and a mix engineer. And it almost is like a pipeline of
Yeah.
they run through all the different respective businesses to get this final product. And at the end, like it's not even just about the quality of the track, but like it moves into like community and branding and marketing, that sort of
Oh
thing
yeah.
too. So I like how you've built a system from taking like a rough diamond in the a buried diamond of a song and translating it. That's what I see your role
Yeah.
is like a vision translator for the music to take it from point A to point like C D E F G kind of
Yeah.
along all the stops. And so without waxing too poetic on what your job is, I admire what you do in that regard. I guess I completely lost my train of thought. I'm excited about what you do. Tell me more about Occult Cats. So specifically, you talked about how the mixing and mastering feeds into that. What is the role of Occult Cats in that process? What do you guys do for people, and what do you do for yourselves?
So Occult Cats is kind of my passion project in a lot of regards. It's a little silly how I started it. I started my record label prior to DistroKid and like SoundCloud having distribution essentially. I come from the era where electronic music, the only way you could get it on Beatport or even Spotify or iTunes or Apple on Music now, I guess, was you had to be on a label. There was no way to get it distributed to that. Like TuneCore didn't have those options. CD Baby didn't have those options. Like if you weren't on a label who already had some sort of distribution connection, you weren't going to be there. And so I kind of really started it for myself because I had been on a few labels already as Lazer Kitten that weren't necessarily the greatest. Like I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say anything because like I'm still trying to get rights back to some of my songs that aren't even under the right name. I'll put it that way. And so like I wanted to do something better, at least for my local community, because at the time there wasn't really any labels here in Utah specifically, because that's where I'm based, for electronic producers. And I noticed it being a reoccurring theme for all of my friends. Like it would be this thing, we'd send our music out and we'd always be told, well, you're not what I'm looking for. You're not XYZ. You don't have 5,000 followers. Like, you're not anything special. Like, you're just another person making house music or drum and bass or techno or whatever. I didn't really care. It was just one of those things of like, you'd just regularly be told no so many times. I wanted to start being the person saying yes. And I knew that if I was going to start saying yes, that would mean I would have to start helping people. And I really wanted to be kind of this communal thing in a way, even though it was kind of more for myself at the beginning kind of thing. Still is for me. I do it because I want to do it. Like, it's fun for me to run a label. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. Again, has to be fun for me to want to do it. And so it was this like weird little thing of being in a position where I knew I could help myself, I could help my friends, I could just create something cool, and I could help just give people an opportunity that weren't getting one, that I knew deserved one, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. In fact, I like how you phrased it. I wanted to be the person saying yes, right? It's like I so I review music on my show on behalf of TikTok, right? And it's like I have seen how a lot of music reviewers work. I understand that it's a medium of entertainment in itself. It's like you get an opportunity to listen to your music, but like sometimes people's their shtick is like roasting people creatively for their music. And it's like, well, like I've heard some incredibly hilarious comments on music. I also feel like there's a lot of people with potential that I could see being shut down by that kind of feedback too.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's important to have empathetic people in your sphere who are like, if not yes, then not yet. If
Yes.
not yet, then it needs this first. And so like to be, like my background is in education, right? Like I paid
Mhm.
for my biochemistry degree teaching guitar. And it's like I had kids who were not cut out for guitar. I wasn't about to tell them that. I was just about to do my best job with them, right? But then every once in a while, you discover kids who have a knack for it. You
Oh,
discover
yeah.
people who have natural talent, and they just need a little bit of steering and positive encouragement. And
Yes.
that's kind of what I see you doing with your label. You said running a label is a lot of work. I'm curious what kind of work goes into it.
Okay, so running a label for me is basically like technically when it comes down to it, it's me and one other person running it. So we kind of handle all of the logistics. We do have some other friends that are like kind of in different areas that do help on occasion. Again, this is a passion project, but it is basically building a community is the big thing first and foremost. But there's like the screening of music. There's getting people who want to actually send you your music. You have to build a name, um, basically around the idea of we have a curated taste of good music and convince other people to be interested in that good music. And I kind of feel like that's a big thing for every label is the curated concept of this is what we believe is good. And so especially with our label, we do take almost every genre, almost. Um, and a lot of that is just because I know for a fact there's a lot of good music in every genre, and there is a way to market that. And so we handle the marketing, we handle promotion, we handle visual artwork, we handle the website, we handle EPK sometimes, depending on if the artist has the like enough information to actually help us build one with them. We do a lot of like artist management, not necessarily like management, but we like do a little bit of coaching, like just being like, hey, here's something that you can do. It's a small thing. It'll help you promote your music. It'll help us promote your music. Again, I handle mixing and mastering. There's all the distribution side of it. So like all the logistics of making sure that it ends up in all the right places at the right time. There's all the pre-save links. There is like making sure that like we send it out to blogs. There's making sure that like emails are going to the right places for these blogs and it's the right write-ups. It's making sure that like honestly, like I'm missing so many things and there's so many more that I can think of. There's data entry. There's like gosh, there's I said graphic design. There's like even writing bios for songs is a thing. For marketing and such. Like there's write-ups for like artists that are releasing the songs. There's just a lot to it.
No, definitely. I asked a hard general question for a reason, right? Mostly call it like a screening question to see what rises to the surface, right? Because like as a person who's involved in many detailed processes, I get it. Sometimes there's just like too much to break down in a single paragraph.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to give people who might be listening an impression just of like what the sheer amount of stuff that it takes to do some of these things. Is like when people say I work in label A&R, they're like, okay, so you decide yes, no on tracks, and that's the extent of your job. And I think there's a lot more to it than that than
Oh, yeah.
people don't realize.
Oh yeah. So like another thing is like I will get tracks that I will have to say no to. And I do have an A&R guy, obviously, because like that is a part of it. But like we try to be very specific of like maybe it's not no, it's just this is why. Like this is what you can approve on. Because I don't ever want it to feel like it's a hard stop to somebody. Sorry, I'm gonna need to take a second real quick.
Do you think?
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
um, but where was I? Okay. Um, we do have A&R that does actually like handle a lot of the S and O's, and a lot of that comes down to not all music is necessarily up to the right standard for releases. Like there is times where somebody is like very fresh, very new to it, that like it would be hard for me to honestly convince my network to enjoy this, which is a really hard thing. So like when somebody sends me something that's not quite right, I try to make it a habit of like starting off by saying 3 things that I do like about what they are doing. Because I always want to be very encouraging to artists. Because I'm not trying to say you shouldn't be making your art, because art is messy, especially when you're starting out. Like it's art. It's not supposed to be always perfect and pretty and pristine. It's art. It's messy. So like 3 positives, the things that they can work on, and then kind of the reason why it's not right for me or my label kind of stuff of like, this is what you need to improve on. This is what it would take for me to actually be like, okay, yes, this is something I'm interested in taking. Because I truthfully do not care about like follower counts. I know that is a thing with some labels. Like I could care less about how many people are listening to your music, like, or you're following your Instagram or things like that. Like that's not important. You're making art. I want your art to shine, kind of thing. It's just not all of it's always. Sometimes you get like, I hate saying it, but it's like it's a coloring book where you're scribbling outside the lines and it's very like new, and then you'll get the ones where it's just like, oh, okay, this is actually like something we can put up on the wall and like display this and show this off, kind of thing. So it's like getting to those steps.
Sure, and I think it's okay to be honest about where someone's at too. It's
Yeah,
like, you know, like I tell people on my show, like, hey, this is not ready to go out, and here's how you can fix it. But you
yeah,
know, like they need that friction step in order to improve. It's like if
yeah,
you know, the joke in the feedback community is everyone's heard this, right? It's like if you send a song to a friend and they reply with fire emojis, I learned nothing. Like I don't need you to tell me that it's good. I need you to tell me why it sucks so I can fix it.
yeah.
Listen, Kat, this has been such an incredible wealth of information. I think I've taken more detailed show notes on this interview than any of the interviewees that I've had yet. So I want to thank you so much for sharing with me. But I do want to try and bring this to a wrap.
Okay.
Let's let's leave off on, if you're up for it, what do you think is the best like general advice you could give somebody starting out in the music field? And then let's segue into what's going on with you. How can people find you and what the future of Lazer Kitten is?
Okay. So I'll give the advice that I wish I had been given early on in my career. Make good art and be stubborn about it. And what I mean by that is make your art. Make what makes you happy. Make what sounds like you. Like, really, you will find your people when you're doing what makes you happy. So make it for yourself and make it because it's fun. And be stubborn about it, because so many people are going to tell you no every step of the way. And you're going to hear no, 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 no. And by being stubborn and being like, no, I want to be an artist, grow on that, work on yourself, work on your skill, work on your craft, and show them why they should say yes. So that's what I mean by being stubborn, is like, work on it till you get there, but be messy, make art, have fun. And then if you want to find more on me and my information, I'm Lazer Kitten, LazerKitten. Lazer Kitten Music on Instagram. I also run Occult Cats, which is OCCULTCATS. And then Garden Cat is just Garden Cat, cat with a K. Those are my music projects. I am all over on every social media site. I am on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music. Honestly, everywhere where you can find your song. I don't want to limit it to anything. So, like, if you listen to music in any place, it's there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kat. I look forward to working with you guys more in the future. I appreciate you so much for showing up and telling us all the dirty industry secrets we all wanted to hear. So I'm going to go
Anytime.
ahead and let you get back to your shoot. I forgot what day it is. Is it Friday? It's
It's
Thursday.
Thursday.
All right. Anyways, till next time. Thank you so much.